Part 2, camera died. I'll start at the beginning of that paragraph. It was a big boy slide, no doubts about it. And we became professionals one spring, preparing the slide to perfection. Philip and I would first go dig into the steel drum trash cans that sat in between two posts and dig out some wax cups to tear into flat pieces. If there was enough, we could just ride the cups down the slide, our little butts planted in the middle with our legs up, feet pointed in the general direction of forward and down. Over and over we could do this, increasing in speed every time. Or we could go the deluxe method. We would jump the slide and began one of us from the top, the other to the bottom, and we would first clean the slide and then start rubbing the slide with the wax paper cups till the whole slide was coated, and then we buffed it. We took some real dry sand and tossed some down the slide as we buffed the slide to a smooth polish with our butts. Now let me tell you about this slide. When they say they don't make them anymore, kids like us were to blame. The slide was 20 or so steps made of steel with a design to the top. It was about 25 feet tall, as tall or just a little taller than the full-size adjacent swings and its rails. Hands crested another 2 feet in the air. The pad was small and required using the handles to sit down, or later the crossbeam as a swing, propelling our small frames down the chute like mini human torpedoes. Where am I? Okay. The steel chute was a sturdy sheet of stainless with one joint halfway down. By that time we could be moving and the bump was minimum. The best wear was tight shorts, running shoes, and a t-shirt. The best ride came literally from the seat of your pants. Philip and I and a few other boys had been in the initial idea of juicing up the slide for practice and season for the speed and landing. What was good at it? Well, at the age of 8, I weighed 60 pounds. And so with a good swing and keeping knees and elbows tucked, I could fly down the slide at speeds equaling a full sprint. The first few steps were in the sandbox, but your third or fourth better clear the sandbox border. Then full speed towards the field with arms and legs flailing in an attempt to stop from the speeds that were faster than physically possible for the child in the thrills of his ride. We could go so fast only 1 foot was needed inside the sandbox, the chute having propelled us 6 to 8 feet. Bounce one and run like a squirrel that had the misfortune of falling out of a tree. We weren't falling that far, but in our defense, squirrels are better equipped than we were. No matter what, you must avoid the rail and run full speed when you land. We would call up to some overzealous kid who wanted to ride full speed just like us. And never fail, 1 or 2 of these darling fellows got hurt, wiped out, hit the sand rail, or just plain face planted into the sand. That kid didn't get up right away, and was dazed for a while, and had to sit on the side of the rail and watch until he was okay. Sort of. He had snot and sand and blood smeared around his nose. But he had a big smile on his face for being so brave to try what we, the expert kids, were doing. He was maybe 6.5. Mike and Brian showed up. Mike and Brian showed up, and being my constant bullies, they were sure they could ride and the slide. Brian went first, and he had more of that crazy white boy in him than Mike. He launched himself with a great rebel whoop, woo, And zoom, he was flying like a turtle and twisting on his back, somehow keeping his feet underneath him. And his wild, long, jet black hair blur tossing about on his head in contrast to his alabaster white skin. And somehow he got his chucks underneath him and took off when he hit the sandbox. He made it slowing down in the grass. Mike had to do it if Brian did it. Mike was bigger all over, not fat, just a little chunky and big framed. And not at all wiry like Brian. So his descent was met with a slower ascent and takeoff from the top. I would like to pause for a second to tell you about the slide. It was fast, finely polished, slippery, and just downright dangerous for the inexperienced and people of any weight over 100 pounds. We didn't know that. We were just kids. We had no idea about gravity and inclined planes, physics and such. What we saw was a sudden increased speed in the fast zone. Mike was out of control early on. He attempted to right himself, but the gravity thing nailed him down to the slide like someone put a weight on him. The edges of the slide were 5 inches high to keep the rider safe. Mike's feet were dancing in the air when he left the end of the slide, and he was horizontal to the ground, going sideways towards the corner boards, which were harder to miss. He didn't. He had managed to right himself somewhat while flying in the air, but that first foot down tells the story. Mike went down hard, slammed belly and chest first with his hands out, slide for second, and rolled once hard, sort of like a flip and a final flop. Dirt, gravel, grass stains, skinned elbows, skinned hands, elbows, cheek, and bump to the head. He had to sit down a while. I saw the big kids totally bit, and then they took it over for the day, sort of. Those kids who I pointed to were cool and get in line with the big kids. I remember mothers running to the side of their overly brave 10-year-old, our age, who had found the railing with his foot and then the ground with his nose. She was yelling things like, "Why do you have to have it so fast? You boys are being dangerous. Look at him!" She shrieked and marched him off to the car. He was crying. I think he broke his nose. Parents in the park started watching the slide, putting restrictions on which kid could ride it. Philip and I were the fastest of the middle-sized kids, 55 to 75 pounds, 80 pounds. We could zoom down that sucker like it was nothing. And that's what this old man, average adult, thought when he wandered into the park. He sort of jumped off the slide halfway down, straight chickened out on the speed. He left the park beaten by professional sliders, the veterans of wax and speed, with a noticeable limp and a dazed countenance. Of course, the other boys are often watching and amid oohs and ahs during a spectacular wreck. This guy did something we never saw and tried to get off mid-slide and bit it hard. A tong could be heard as part of him hard hit one of the steel poles holding up the mid portion of the slide. I would get all the kids into it. My gyrations and animated activity and excitement would be contagious. And the boys would be scrambling for wax paper cups and the 2 garbage cans next to the picnic tables, feet up in the air, trash flying, and the scramble to create the fast ride. We got in trouble when the recreation staff showed that at summer. They were adults and wore shirts with staff on one side and Tacoma Park Recreation on the other. At first, they were amazed by the local kids of the park who gathered to achieve a common goal. We worked the slide to perfection. Kids were flying in the air everywhere, and a line had formed at the base of the slide. All the kids wanted to try it, and they did. Zoom! Zoom! Kids are coming down so fast, the other kids at the bottom who had done a butt slide in the sand or mini wreck could not get out of the way fast enough. What we had never seen before had happened. A pile-up of small legs and arms with little wails and oomphs, for a pile-up is a pile-up. And in the 70s, we appreciated that and took full advantage. Kids were stacked and twisted into a laughing from the top, screaming from the bottom pile-up, which had to be carefully undone, for these stacks could get 10 to as much as 20 little bodies intertwined of massive elbows, knees, and heads popping forth. The staff intervened and began applying rules. A staff member posted himself at the bottom and regulated turns on the slide. Still, the slide was fast for some, too fast. It was a little fellow who changed the slide rules. He took off like a pro from the top with a powerful swing, and he positioned his butt in a perfect position to maintain the least friction as he hurtled down the slide. But instead of sliding off the end, he put his foot down right on the end of the slide. Friction. He went off the slide with a sideways spinning cartwheel, which surely was not planned. His body, stiff in its flight, awaited the dreaded landing. Every kid knows what this is like. The stunning impact that knocks your wind out, leaves the whole world shaking. And it's often accompanied by a big head to ending up in your ear-curdling scream. Yeah, that's it. This little kid hit hard, and we knew he was hurt. His spinning sideways allowed his head to find its way down to smack his head on the border of the sandbox with a sturdy 2-inch by 12-inch board of hard wood. The thud could be heard from 50 feet away, and the scream following it could be heard, first stunning the park with sound, then echoing around the trees, sending every available adult into motion full speed to the emanator of such a horrid noise. It's a sound every parent knows, the sound of a child being seriously injured. They didn't let us speed up the slide anymore, at least when they could. Philip and I would still speed it up at night or on dry weekends, but for the park staff, the ride was over. Still, the idea spread. Kids in different parks were getting the idea from the kids shipped into Jacques Park from surrounding areas. Stories of slide accidents increased. Kids were breaking arms and flying off to spin around ones halfway up, except the rocket ship slide on University Boulevard. But that's for another story. I hope you enjoyed this reading from the Eye of Thor. Flora, I wish I could be there among all the kids. And each and every one of you, my memory works like this, so I can just think about the house and think about you guys. And my love is there with you. And happy 95th Flora, Kellogg, from Oregon. From John. I miss you and I love you. Bye, guys. Peace.